Alright you guys, welcome back to another video. Today's Thursday, so I'm continuing with getting this thing put back together. So I've got the supercharger gasket David brought to me, because the one I had was a Gen 5 gasket, not a Gen 3 gasket. So the hole extended way up here, and when I put the supercharger down, like the gasket hole kept going up past where the supercharger was, so it wasn't going to seal it off. So that gasket wasn't going to work. So I had David bring me this one, and I just ordered him another one along with the head gasket, since he brought me those head gaskets. So now all I got to do is get the the O-rings here and RTV them. So I got to put some RTV in these two insets here, put the O-rings, more RTV, and then supercharger can go on. I also need to take the tube out of that NA junk engine lower intake, and I'm going to pop that EGR tube in there, so that way that's working properly how it's supposed to. And before I can get the supercharger back on there, I need to pull the throttle body off. It's just 3 10mm, 2 on the bottom and 1 up top. So I just got to get this off, get that all wire wheeled and cleaned up. I got a brand new throttle body gasket right there, so I can get that throttle body gasket swapped out, and then pretty much everything on the top end will all be new gaskets, new O-rings, new seals. So that's the plan. So I'm about to get this throttle body unbolted off here, get it cleaned up, get the new gasket on, and then that way I can get this bolted back onto the car and start getting everything hooked up and try to get her running again. So y'all stay tuned, and I'll give you guys another update. Alright y'all, so I got the throttle body off of the supercharger, got all the old gasket cleaned off of the supercharger housing, got all the old gasket cleaned off of the throttle body. Now I just got to wire wheel them, and I can get this new gasket on here and give you guys another update as I'm putting on the new gasket. Alright you guys, so I've got the supercharger has all been wire wheeled. The throttle body has all been wire wheeled. So I'm going to grab this gasket, I'm going to get it put on here. I'm probably going to put some RTV around it anyways. But, bam. There she is. So I'm going to get RTV on both sides of this gasket, get the throttle body back on, get it bolted down, and get ready to get this thing set back on the lower intake manifold and start getting it put back together. So y'all give me a minute and I'll give you guys another update. Alright you guys, so I ended up copper spraying the throttle body gasket instead of RTVing it, and got that on there back together. Got my 3 nuts back on there, they're tight. So now I'm ready to RTV around these coolant O-rings, get the O-rings in, more RTV. I need to get that tube and get put back in here, and then I can get that supercharger set back on. So y'all give me a minute and I'll give you guys another update. Alrighty you guys, so I got the coolant O-rings RTV'd, got those on. Just got the supercharger set in place with the new gasket. Man, it's looking like an engine again. So now I've just got to grab the supercharger bolts out of the trunk and get the supercharger bolts back in. Probably go ahead and throw the fuel rail back on, but I still got to get back here and get the exhaust manifold, the rear exhaust manifold bolted back on, and I've got to put the exhaust manifold crossover back on. So I probably could have waited to put this on. I also have to still put on the EGR tube down here, but I couldn't put it back on until I bolt the rear exhaust manifold back on. So I don't know, I might have to pull this back off again, but I don't think I'll have to. I'm sure I could probably get all that back in there with that on. So yeah, I'm gonna keep working on this thing and try to get all this hooked back up and get everything reconnected, and I'll give you guys another update here shortly. Alright you guys, so just got these supercharger bolts all in, got them all tight, everything's looking good. So now I'm working on the rear manifold. I got my gasket on, I've got the manifold slid onto that stud, so I've got to grab all the nuts and bolts and start getting these all put back in, and then I just keep getting everything hooked up. And once I get this rear one, I can go ahead and throw on the fuel line, and then I can start getting the alternator bracket and everything bolted back on. And I'm gonna have to swap out that one bolt so it don't go through the valve cover like it did previously. And I got to get this bolted down and tight. I still got to get the front manifold on. Once I get that rear header on, I got to put the spark plugs back in, because got to do the manifold first, then spark plugs. So I'm trying to get her all back together. So y'all stay tuned, and I keep you guys updated once I make some more progress. Alright, y'all, so I got the rear exhaust manifold on. I need to hook up the O2 sensor, and I still need to get the fuel rail on and get the fuel lines plugged back in, and then start plugging in all the injectors. And I still need to get the EGR valve bolted onto the side of the head and get the tube into the lower intake manifold. And then after that, it's just plugging everything in, and I got to get the alternator bracket bolted back on. But I've made a lot of progress. I still got to get the front manifold on and the crossover pipe, but I've got to do the other stuff first. So y'all stay tuned, and I'll keep you guys updated. Alright, you guys, so I've got the rear manifold is all tight. I've got the O2 hooked up. I've got the harness ran, got everything plugged in on the throttle body, got all my injectors are all plugged in. I mean, it's coming together. Got the coolant temp sensor plugged in, got the EGR plugged in. I still have to put on the throttle cable bracket back onto the throttle body, and then I have to put the heat shield that goes around the EGR back on, so it'll hold this harness back off of the EGR so it doesn't melt the harness. And then I have to run both the heater hoses back over here. Once I get the alternator bracket bolted on, I have to RTV both of the coolant elbows as it goes into the lower intake manifold down here into the timing cover. And then I've also got to run my vacuum line that goes from here to the fuel rail down to the lower intake manifold and around the back to the map sensor. And so I've got all that in the trunk, and so I just gotta keep getting everything hooked up, and here before too long this thing will be able to start up. I've still got to drain the oil and get fresh oil and filter for it and do an oil change. But man, I'm making a lot of progress. I still got to get the 3 spark plugs in the rear head, and then I'll pretty much be able to start getting everything tightened down over here. I've got a couple grounds I have to bolt down. I've got to get this thing bolted down because it's not bolted down at all. The nuts and bolts for this are in the trunk. So, man, but I'm making a lot of progress. So, y'all stay tuned, and I'll give you guys another update. Alright, you guys, so I've made a lot of progress. I've got the coil pack bracket, it's all bolted down. I've got my grounds on and tight. I've got the ICM plugged in. I've got the rear spark plugs installed. Everything's tight back there. I've got my fuel lines reinstalled. That's the purge solenoid. That's all plugged in. Got my throttle cable bracket bolted back down. I just gotta hook up the throttle cable and the cruise control cable. I still gotta install the crossover pipe and just a few little things, spark plug wires, some vacuum lines, get the alternator bracket and the coolant elbows installed and RTV'd. But yeah, it's almost 9 o'clock, and I've got to be at work at 6 a.m. tomorrow instead of 7. So I've got to get up at like 5 o'clock, and it was already a pretty long day today before coming home and working on this. So I'm going to call it a night. Alright, y'all, so I got the crossover pipe on. I've got the plugs and wires on, got this on, got my vacuum line going from the throttle body to the purge solenoid installed. I still have to do the throttle cables, but man, overall this is going really well. I've made a shit ton of progress. So, but yeah, I need to get inside. I'm still gonna have to go to my storage and grab that other oil dipstick and dipstick tube, because remember I broke the one and I've already thrown it away, so I'm gonna have to snake it down there through there, and then it comes up right here between that bolt there and this heat shield on the plug wire, and then it has a little hook that comes over onto this stud, and you bolt it down with this nut on this stud, and that's what holds it in place. So I've got to get that tomorrow as well, and then try to make it over here and finish this up and get all of this on. I've got to figure out another bolt situation for the alternator so it doesn't go through the valve cover again, but it's alright. I've got it sealed up pretty good, so hopefully that will hold. And I was looking around, I found another front valve cover, a black one, but it's like $57 for the one, and now I can't even find a rear one. So oh no, the only ones I can find online now is just the NA rears, but I did find a supercharged front, so I don't know, I might be able to do that one, but still it's $100 and something for two valve covers. Is just whoosh. If I'm gonna spend that kind of money, I'm gonna buy the ones from ZZP. But yeah, that's gonna be it for tonight, y'all. So y'all have a good night. I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Hey YouTube. Alright, so it's Friday, it's like 10:30 at night, but I had to run over to the storage and I had to grab the oil dipstick. So got another oil dipstick tube and oil dipstick on there that's not broken. So now I can actually check the oil, and I don't have to worry about the oil leaking out of the dipstick tube hole. So I'm gonna have to super glue that back together, but that's okay. Other than that, I'm about to get the alternator bracket on. I've got the RTV right here because I'm going to RTV both coolant elbows. But I'm going to grab the impact and the wire wheel, and I'm going to wire wheel everything down first and kind of clean it up a little bit, just like everything else. And then get her two coolant elbows RTV'd and get her slapped on there and get her bolted down with my 315s. And then come to find out, they swapped this bolt with the one here and put the longer one in here and the short one in over here. I grabbed some other bolts from the storage just in case, but sure enough, someone just reversed the bolts, and that's why that one bolt went through the rear valve cover. But I got it all nice and sealed up, no more hole, and that bracket right there will cover right over it, so you won't even see it, and you shouldn't have to worry about it leaking. So I'm about to go ahead and get this cleaned up and RTV'd and get it bolted on, get my heater hoses hooked up, get the belts on, and then I got to jack her up and drain the oil and the filter. And I went to Walmart and I got some Quaker State 5W30, got a K&N filter, got some brake parts cleaner, and then I got me a new pair of boots. Those are $50. And then I got a couple other things. I got a little extended magnet and a magnetic tray and a couple other things that are inside. But yeah, I went and got some stuff, and hopefully I can get her running and driving again in this video. So y'all stay tuned. I'm gonna get to work, get this on here, and I'll give you guys another update here shortly. Alright you guys, so I gave the alternator and the bracket a quick wire wheel. Just quickly cleaned it up. It looks a lot better than what it did. It's not perfect, but it looks a lot better than what it did. The face was like completely black. Now it's actually looks aluminum. So got the both the coolant elbows RTV'd. know if you can really... Yeah, there you go. You can see the RTV on the timing cover right there on the water pump. And on the other coolant elbow. So, shouldn't have any leaks there. So now just gotta hook up both of the heater hoses. And it's almost done. Like, and hook up the heater hoses, put some belts on, jack her up, drain the oil, change the filter, fill it back up with oil, and it should be able to start her up. Oh, and I gotta connect the throttle cable, and I've got to put the air filter and the boot back on. But other than that, I'm pretty sure everything else is done. Oh, and the battery. And I still gotta hook up the power wire to the alternator and plug in the plug to the alternator. But man, other than that, it's she's just about done. So y'all stay tuned, and I'll give you guys another update here shortly. Alright, you guys, so I got both of the belts on. It was a little bit of a pain in the ass. I had to fight a little bit, but I got them on. Got this bar bolted on. The harness fought me on that, but I got this. That's what holds the purge solenoid, so I got that on. It's tightened down onto the alternator bracket. It's not, the bolt is not going through the valve cover because I swapped it out with the shorter one. Man, everything is done except for I need to electrical tape that power wire that goes to the starter. And then once I do that, I need to hook up the battery and then do an oil change, and it's pretty much ready to start. Oh, and I got to put on the air filter and plug in the intake air temp. But other than that, David hooked up the throttle cables for me, so that's hooked up, and that's pretty much everything. Everything's hooked up, so it's just the air filter and the intake tube, plugging in the intake air temp sensor, and then taping up that wire down there and hooking up the battery and doing an oil change. Oh, and I still have the EGR heat shield, which that just goes right here. And I need to get that on there as well. But just to start it and see what's going on, see how it runs, it should be fine without it. But I'm gonna, I guess, grab the jack and go ahead and jack this thing up and grab the drain pan and get this oil drained so I can get this oil change done, and I'll give you guys another update once I get it jacked up. Alright, you guys, so I got the oil drained, got the oil filter swapped out with that new K&N, RTV'd the drain plug. So now I've got to let her down off the jack, fill up the oil, and hook up the battery. Still got to finish topping off the radiator, but I mean, she's pretty much ready to start. So I'm gonna go ahead and let her down off the jack and get her filled up with oil, and I'll give you guys another update. All right, you guys, so got her topped off with oil, so now I can check the oil, and bam, she's good. A little over full, but she's good. So now I've got to get the battery out of the trunk, get it back under the back seat, which means I got to move all those tools and shit out of the back seat so I can get the battery back in, get it hooked up. Got to get some water in the jug because I ran out of coolant, and she still needs some more, so I have to go get some water, top it off, and then should be ready to start up. So y'all stay tuned. I'll give you guys another update here in a few. Alright, you guys, so I just got the battery hooked back up. Everything should be good. I'm going to try to start her up. See how she runs. So yeah, I was burning off that oil. that boost gauge. Alright. I'm happy with that.
Sounds good.
$111-mile fuel range. Yeah, there was a lot of oil in the exhaust from the bad valve seals. So it's going to be burning off oil for a minute. I guess I'm going to go get this jug filled up with water so I can top this off, and I'll give you guys another update. Alright, you guys. We got her running. She's been running for like 15, 20 minutes. Idling great. I'm bleeding the coolant. Just trying to get the air bubbles out. So, just going to keep topping it off and keep on watching the coolant tip. And hopefully we can just get all this air out of the system and get her running good, and I can go give her a test drive. And well, I'm going to let her keep bleeding this air out of the coolant system, and I'll give you guys another update. Alright, man, so got her back together. Coolant is bled for the most part. So I'm about to go test drive it. We hold the hood? Yeah. Alright. Your light's up top. Doors aren't shut. Hit unlock. Have a good night, bro.
You too.
Thank you for the help.
You're welcome. Fucking sounds good.
Running smooth.
It sounds like a new car. Alright, bro. I'll hit you up in the morning.
Alright, bro. Hey YouTube, so it's the next day, it's Saturday. So I've got a guy, Jake, he's interested in buying this transmission. So I got the engine and the Bonneville all put back together. That's what the last clip was. And yeah, I just wanted for him to be able to see that this thing shifts and it drives and does everything it's supposed to. So yeah, so now I'm just waiting for him and his niece to come look at the car and drive it so they can make sure they want this transmission. And then I've got to pull the engine and trans, get the trans ready to go to them, and then I'm going to be pulling the motor and trans out of their Bonneville and installing this trans onto their engine and getting it back into her car. And it's a really nice dark green Bonneville. It's super clean. And they also might get a couple of the window regulators, and so I told them I can do all that. So yeah, I'm just waiting to hear from them. So it's probably going to be it for this video, and in the next one hopefully we'll be pulling the motor and transmission out of this thing and doing a transmission swap and another Bonneville. So y'all like, comment, subscribe, stay tuned for more, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.